Welcome to Scramble Game Show. As usual, we have two parts of the show. The first part, we have a guest, and the second part, we have kids come here to play the show, to play the Scramble games. Today, we are very honored to have Mr. Peter Michaelis, correct?
Michaelis.
Michaelis, all right, sorry. Michaelis coming to our show. Peter lives in Westchester, in Bedford. And of course, now is the season for election, and that's how we met, actually. I think several people that have been on our show happen to be running for office. We don't design that way, but certainly for our show, we like to invite people that are serving the public as role model for our children. So welcome to our show.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Right. So let's first start. Have you introduced yourself a little bit and your background and how long you've been, in Westchester?
Well, let's see. I moved to Westchester 18 years ago from the city. Decided to have a family. My wife and I got married in Bedford. 2 years after that, our first child came. He's now 15. I have another boy who's 13. This is a great area to raise children in.
Oh yes, definitely.
What you said earlier, I'm just one of those people that thinks that public service is a very good and noble venture, and people should get involved in their communities.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I know you have been in the media business, so it must be a big change. Let's first ask you, how do you compare, say, working in the media, business, later on, say, serving as a public servant?
Well, for me, they're both from the same place inside of me. I went into television news because I thought it was a way to give back. Back when I started in 1979, bringing news and information to people I thought was a terrific thing to be able to do. It also happened I like being at current events as they were happening. That eye on history was something I always liked. I was
eye on history. Yep.
Yes, I was just to be there, to be an actual eyewitness to history when it was happening, not watching it on the news.
Right.
So I like that, but I also saw it as a public service. Throughout my career in television news, things kind of changed a little bit, where television news started to have to make money and make the
commercial.
shows. Yeah, it became more commercialized.
Right.
And at that point, I think the news changed an awful lot. When I moved to Bedford, I stayed with CBS for a little while longer, but then I finally decided to leave television news. And when I did, being able to get involved in my community, and by serving on the conservation board first, and then on the tree advisory board, and now I'm a current member of our zoning board, was again a way for me to stay actively involved in my community and help make decisions. There are not enough people in the local communities
I agree.
that serve. Yeah. And one of the things I also found out is that every meeting I would go to, I would see all of the same people. And Bedford, which is a town of about 20,000 people, I'd say there are only about 100 people that are actively involved in the town. There are the elected positions, but then there are a lot of these boards, and the town is always looking for good people to come and get involved.
Right.
So I'd say that my role in television news as a producer and bringing news to people, this was a natural outgrowth of it for me.
Right. So from that point of view, I wish you could tell our audience, particularly the young people, what are the sort of satisfaction in serving the community and serving the public?
Well, it's great to be involved. I mean, you have to be involved. What it means for me is I'm on a first name basis with the the supervisor of the town, the town, the police chief. I know most of the firefighters and the police officers. When I go around town, I feel like I've contributed to the town, and this is all for me a very good thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel that way too. Is that when you work in a community, you can see results sort of directly. You can see the impact. In any public work, usually, the impact is long term, and it's difficult to see, particularly if you scale this up to the world, to the country, and so on. So I think local community service in that aspect allows you to have grasp a little, sort of closer range, so you can see what's happening. Recently, the reason I sort of got involved into the school board for the same reason. I can see what's happening by spending my time, energy, and so on to help the school systems. I'm sure that that's what you feel as you can contribute to the.
I did, but I also think that you have to come to doing work in a community without an agenda. Not saying that you had an agenda, but I'm just saying I see a lot of people that are on the current boards with an idea to resisting change. I mean, Westchester, Northern Westchester in particular, has changed dramatically in the 20 years that I've lived here, almost 20 years I've lived here. And you have to find a balance.
Right.
And I think that the communities of Northern Westchester are crying out for people that have a good sense of how to deal with that change. Not from a point of view of just saying blanketly no or blanketly yes, but bringing some common sense thinking to the various issues that they have to deal with, whether it's where housing developments go, where affordable housing goes, how to bring these things into the community so that people will be not be upset by them. I mean, one of the big issues around here that's always a killer is cell towers. Everybody I know has a cell phone, and yet nobody wants a cell tower in their backyard.
Yes.
And consequently, we have a lot of areas that don't have cell coverage, and it's very frustrating because whenever they try to rectify that problem, then those people in that community come out. Now that's great, but proactively thinking about where to put those towers might have solved some of those problems. So I'm also somebody that believes in proactive government.
So
and,
those are all part of the legislators' sort of the work, right?
those are more in the town. The county legislator, from my point of view, with Northern Westchester in particular, unfortunately, has to do with more about reducing taxes. Our property taxes in Northern Westchester are the third highest in the country.
Right.
And we've got to do something about bringing those costs down. I mean, it's becoming almost prohibitive to be able to live here, both for seniors, for anybody, for parents whose kids have grown up, very hard for them to find a house to live in, and you don't want people moving away from a community just because the taxes are too high.
Now, what's the crux of the matter? I mean, the tax is high, but also we demand services. So there got to be a trade-off. So you, as a legislator, you almost have to set agenda, in a sense, to do the trade-off.
Yeah, oddly enough, the taxes around here are divided into three components. The school tax is about 85% of everybody's tax bill around here. One of the best bargains we have is our town taxes, because for very little we get an awful lot of services, actually. The problem comes in with the county is that we don't get a lot of county services up here, and by and large a lot of the people up here don't want a lot of county services. They have to pay their county taxes, but they go down county, and where the more of the social programs exist, the busing. We don't have a lot of bus lines up here, and people like it that way by and large. But I'd like to find some ways to bring the cost of county government down in general. It's grown by 55% in the last 8 years. The number of employees in county government has gone up dramatically over the last couple of years. And in my mind, there have to be programs that can be either scaled back or brought together as a way to find economies of...
On that point, I think is similarly in school systems. Sometimes the cost is induced by the mandates that federal law, state law sort of imposed on.
No question.
So this county, expansion or growth of the county government sometimes is by necessity to respond to these requirements by law. So how you're going to be able to sort of affect that on the county level?
There are mandates, but then there are also a lot of programs that have the current county executive have just started recently, and that either can perhaps the number of people that have been employed by that can be brought down. I mean, there are any number of things that I've just seen recently when I've gone down to the county legislature, from everything from $1 million for gates to go across the Bronx River Parkway when it floods, to as opposed to using the current sawhorses, that kind of thing. There's a lot of money like that that's just generated and spent, and we pay for it up here, but it goes down there.
I see.
And so you need a voice that's going to say no, enough is enough. One of the big issues for me is that right now there are 17 county legislators altogether. There are, in order to pass bond issues, which is what creates more taxes, you need what's called a supermajority, 12 votes. There are right now 11 Democrats and 6 Republicans. If I'm running on the Republican line, the Independence line, and the Conservative line, and if my seat goes to a Democrat instead, there will be a supermajority, which would mean that any bond issue could be passed strictly if the Democrats decide they wanted to pass it without any kind of discussion. And that's a situation we don't want. I mean, the beauty of government is it checks and balances. There's discussion about things. If all of a sudden one party has a majority and they don't need to discuss it, then things will get passed in a vacuum, and then that won't be good for anybody.
Yeah, certainly you don't want a sort of a controlled legislation that is by a single party, particularly if the party is identified with certain purposes. But put that away, because we usually don't get into the politics part.
Gotcha.
But I think the interesting part of election every year is very educational. Okay,
Yes.
and that's actually the main purpose for us to invite people onto our show to sort of talk about it, because the kids will really learn a lot from watching the candidates explain issues, the process of election, and so on and so forth. I understand you come into this race actually after a candidate sort of has to drop off, right?
Yes.
Maybe you can tell a little bit about that, and maybe
the person who wanted to seek this seat for whatever family reasons said she couldn't run at the last minute. And Ursula Lamott, who is our current county legislator, called me along with several of the other heads of the Republican Party to say, would I consider filling in? They knew I'd had a 10-year history of working in Bedford on Bedford committees, and they knew I knew the issues pretty well. So they asked me to run, and after consideration, I said I would. But to get back to your thing of what you were saying with the children, I mean, my son, who in 9th grade ran for his student council. I remember when I was in college, I ran as a freshman for the freshman class president. I lost that race by a couple of votes, and then I ran again for supervisor 6 years ago in the town of Bedford as an independent. And all of those experiences, even though I've lost those 2 previous ones, my son lost as well, although he won another race for his red team captain. It's a great way to build character, and it's great the people that you meet. I mean, people have been very supportive of my running and the involvement with the things that I do in the town of Bedford. They love to see people get involved, and it makes you feel good doing that.
I think this is certainly a unique process. Our country sort of exhibits to the world.
There's I don't know who said it, but the motto, when I do good, I feel good.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about for me. I mean, if I can do something that's good, whether it was producing a television piece that showed, something happening, and out of that came something good, I felt good.
Yeah.
And helping my community is in the same way is what it's all about for me.
This is very good. We are, as a public broadcast channel, as you know, we like to invite candidates because I feel sometimes there's too much burden on the candidates in terms of raising money and run the race and so forth. When money is at stake or involved, it really takes away the virtue of serving the public. So I personally feel that whatever I can, and I speak to any candidate, whether Republican or Democrats, if they want to be on our show and talk about issues that are particularly interesting to the community and particularly to children, I welcome them. I think I realize nowadays that TV campaign is very, very expensive, but it's almost become a necessary evil. You can't run a race without television sort of advertising. So
to pick up on that, let me just add that there's nothing inherently Democratic or Republican about serving in local town government.
Exactly.
It's about consensus and building consensus and working with everybody, despite what party they may belong to. The frustrating part for me, however, when you run for election, you have to be a member of a party, because that's how you get on the ballot.
In other words, independent
it's
very difficult.
Yes, I ran as an independent last time and lost terribly because there's no independent party out there. There's an independence party, but to run, you have to belong to a major party.
Right.
And once you belong to a major party, all of a sudden that defines often for a lot of people who you are.
Right.
And again, I think that's too bad. I think that people should try to educate themselves as much as possible on the candidates that are running.
Yeah.
The League of Women Voters does a very good guide. The local newspapers are all about interviewing the candidates and debating and endorsing them.
Right.
Other endorsements are received. I've been endorsed by the Senator Vinnie Leibel and Ursula Lamott, and these are all good things. But I wish in some ways it was more about who you are and the common sense thinking than believing what a party has to say.
Right.
Parties may be great on a national level, but on a local level, the towns are just too small.
That's right. I agree. I think the press seem to be also sharing this view that when they endorse or interview people, I don't think they really stress on the party part of the issue. I think this is a good point. I think most people feel that in the local business, really you don't talk about sort of national politics or party politics. You really want to tell the people what you want to do for this town, right?
Exactly. And what you do for the town has nothing to do with the Republican or Democratic Party.
That's right. So in the demographic that you say you're going to serve or represent, what is the proportion in terms of party population?
In northern Westchester, in District 2, which is Mount Kisco, Somers, Pound Ridge, Lewisboro, North Salem, and Bedford, it's about a third Republican, a third Democrat, and a third Independent.
Oh, so it's a fairly good distribution.
It's a pretty nicely divided up. And a lot of the independents these days are independent because they don't like how conservative the parties have gotten, especially the Republican Party. And so they call themselves independents instead. But then when they go in and vote, they make up their mind at that point.
Right. So I hear you that you almost have to join the big party in order to run a race. But on the other hand, I think on the local level, I really feel that the people join a particular party should have the desire or idea to really transform the party. Okay, the party seemed to be, in my view, is governed by the national downward rather than the grassroots upward. In my personal view, I'm not a politician, although I volunteer for school board. That doesn't qualify me as a politician. I feel that locally, people ought to really reflect and bring those issues and bring things sort of percolate up rather than top-down type of idiot. This is our party line, therefore we do. As you say, you can't apply that to every community, and their boundary conditions are all very different.
No, but I agree with you. I wish it would come. I mean, if people actually would spend the time and see what politics is on a local level, they would get more involved because it's quite frightening. I mean, a lot of times a Democratic town committee is literally 3 or 4 people sitting in a living room, and they say, well, we have a supervisor race coming up. Who wants to run for supervisor?
Yeah.
And one of those people says, I'll run for supervisor.
Yeah.
And the other three go, okay, all in favor of Joe running for supervisor. And now Joe has been nominated by that town's Democratic Party.
Right.
In my mind, it really ought to be on a much broader basis and be based on what are Joe's qualifications, not just because 4 people are sitting in a living room with the title of Democratic Town Committee or Republican Town Committee.
Right.
But I think one of the problems that Northern Westchester faces is that a lot of the people out here commute into the city, and that commute both ways is a 2-hour round trip for them.
Yeah, sort of take their interest away from.
Well, it's not that it takes them away. They just don't have the time frame because there are mostly families out here. People want to spend time with their children.
Right.
They don't have the time to get involved, and they're counting on those that do get involved to be good and to represent them as well. By and large, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons I enjoy being involved. I feel like I'm lucky enough to have the time and the desire to do it, so I want to do that. And that's why I ask people to support me.
Great. I think what you have been saying is that we want everybody to get involved, and we probably should tell the kids, get your dad and then get your mom involved. I think your community, your house, your home, your school, your town. So in that sense, that everybody should get involved.
Yeah.
So today we don't have that much time. I know you probably have lots of ideas, and you're going to go around to tell people how you're going to serve the county, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So we hope to wish you luck, and hope you will come back and tell us more when we have a chance to see certain things that you do and accomplish as a new legislator.
Thank you.
All right?
All I can say is everybody should get out and vote on November 6th.
Yes, that we all remember. That one I think everybody knows.
The race that I'm in, the county legislator, is the #1 race on the ticket, and this is an off-presidential year, so usually the numbers go down. I'm hoping the numbers will be good and strong.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay,
again.
thank you for
Appreciate
coming. Yes. Welcome to Scramble Game Show. The previous half an hour, we have our guest here. And now we're going to have fun with our kids playing the Scramble games. Now, let me first introduce the kids today. We have 4 kids here. All right. Again, from Somers Schools, right? Okay. This time I'm going from right-hand side here. You have a microphone in front of you, so speak loudly. What's your name? Where are you from?
Jerry Chang from Somers, and I'm in 4th grade.
Okay.
Zachary Krohn from Somers, and I'm in 2nd grade.
2nd grade.
I'm Jeanette Krohn from Somers, and I'm in 4th grade. I'm Michelle Krohn, and I'm in 3rd grade, and I'm from Somers.
Good. All right. You choose to have a rematch, right? Last week, you guys played the girls against boys, all right? Today is a rematch, okay? Now, we have the dictionary here, okay? We can check every word you say. So if you don't know the word, you should not arbitrarily just say it, okay? Make sure you say the words you know, because we're going to check with the dictionary, all right? Last time we used the buzzer, and today we somehow forgot the buzzer. So please raise your hand rather than push the button. There's no button to push, all right? Raise your hand, and we will call you, and then you say, all right? And there's a microphone in front of you. Speak to the microphone or just speak loud, okay? All right. Now, we'll begin, and Luann will help me. We, again, will keep the words on the board, one side for one team. I'm going to shuffle this a little bit. Okay? All right. Minimum 3-letter word, right? Okay. Ready. Oops. D. E. M. D. When you watch them, whoever raised hand first, you call out. X. T.
Jerry. Met.
M-E-T. Met. All right. L.
Jerry. Melt.
Oh, melt. Very good. E. M. A. Michelle? D-A-M. Okay. All right, this side. G. O.
Jeanette.
God. G-O-D. Okay. That's this side. B. U. S.
Jeanette. Make God dogs.
Oh, that is good. All right. Change to dogs. Okay. Y. A. P.
X. A-X-E.
A-X-E. All right. T.
By. B-U-Y.
B-U-Y. No? Which side?
Boy side.
Oh, boy side. Right. Okay. Q. E. I.
Jerry. Steal there to make a name.
Steal, dam, and make made. Okay. J. T. N. E.
Jerry.
What?
Jet.
Jet? Okay, J-E-T. All right, Zach?
P-I-N, pin.
Okay, very good. P-I-N.
Zachary?
One-
Protect pins, make pins. Pint.
A pint. Okay, very good. Protect pen with pint. U O D R H.
Jared?
Hour with the H.
Okay, H O U R. Hour. Very good. C H T F R I S
Jeanette?
Sit.
S-I-T. All right, sit. Mm-hmm.
Jared?
Sit.
Sit?
Steal, sit to make sit.
Oh, sift. Oh.
Sift?
Sit.
TH?
T-H.
Is that a word?
Oh. I thought he would say S-I-F-T. Sorry.
Check.
S-I-T-H?
Yeah.
Like Revenge of the
Star Wars.
Sith? Wait, did I
Star
miss
Wars.
the-
I don't know. All Star Wars words are
It actually
in the.
means since.
Yeah. Okay. Since. Yes. S-I-T-H. A. V.
Zachary?
Oh,
Jeanette?
Janet.
Far.
Far. F-A-R. Okay. Far. Wild. Oh,
was a tough one.
Michelle. who pound the table?
I did.
Yeah, okay, let Michelle raise hand and pound the table.